My beginnings were very much influenced by an exhibition I saw with William Eggleston. I'd never seen photography on the walls of a museum before, and I'd never seen it being used as art. I'd only ever seen it as advertising or fashion. I was looking at something that was seemingly kind of ordinary and mundane, and yet I had a physical reaction to it, to looking at it. And I ended up spending the whole afternoon there. I bought William Eggleston's guide, brought it home with me, and within 5 days of seeing that exhibit, I'd bought darkroom equipment on eBay, a professional camera, and I'd started developing and processing my own pictures. Moving image came into my work kind of organically. I was making pictures, still images, for a long time. And I was kind of actually getting to the point where I wasn't sure where I was going to go next with it. I was getting I'd reached kind of a flat point with it. And I had an exhibition here in London, and people in the crowd at the opening were coming up to me asking me what happened to the woman in the photograph just before or after I took it. I thought it'd be interesting to see what making those series of stills together, showing the before, a little bit of the before, almost like sliding the viewfinder forward and backwards with one image in the center. That's kind of how I approached Despair, which was my first short film. It was 3 minutes. And then the New York Times magazine asked me to shoot a series of 1-minute films with who they thought were going to win Oscars that year. So suddenly I was shooting all of these potential Oscar nominee actors, and they really wanted me to give them the story of their character. Even though the film was only 1 minute, it was important to them that they knew what the story was and how they were going to get there with their character. And so suddenly I was directing these narrative stories. And really, since I've been making films now for 5 or 6 years, the challenge of putting all these elements together and realizing that film is actually using all art mediums. It's using sculpture, it's using painting, it's using photography, it's using music. So that's what's exciting to me. And then when I go back to still photography, which I'll never not go back to, I have a new interest in it. The films have become more and more narrative, so that's where all the narrative seems to be flowing into. And then the photography in itself is very still. And so taking those pieces away and just being able to just really focus on something and examine this one moment. I'm no longer placing people in really obvious narratives. It's leaving more to the viewer, I think. Los Angeles has been a place where I've had fun examining the line between artifice and the rawness of emotion. And just because there's such a crazy underbelly, it's a very ugly city with so much color and a circus of people living there, but then there's all these layers on top of it that promise perfection and promise success, and the mountains are always this perfect backdrop with a blue sky and the singing birds, and so it's a really interesting juxtaposition of worlds going on, and I think you don't really get that anywhere else, except in the Paris Opera Ballet. When I was making La Grande Sortie, the amount of pain that the dancers go through and the sound that the point toe makes on the wood as it scrapes, and these knocking noises that their shoes make, and the sweat cracking through the makeup. You can only see this stuff if you're in the room with them up close. Obviously, I think there's no better place to study love and passion than in the ballet. The more abstract my photography gets, the more my film needs to be more linear, and I always want there to be room for an audience to participate. It's showing just enough to spark the imagination, and then there's a bunch of questions left to be answered by the individual there. I'm shooting from the perspective of a woman. I'm making films from the perspective of me, and I happen to be a woman. So a woman, here today in this culture, I've experienced a lot of things that a lot of other women have experienced, and so those experiences all end up in my work.